Hello and welcome to Frost Over the World. Later in the programme, Reza Pahlavi, son of the late Shah of Iran, piracy on the high seas, and actress Stockard Channing. But first, South Africa. A new political party set up to challenge the ruling ANC, the African National Congress, has already made an impact. The new party, called the Congress of the People, or COPE for short, has been formed by a number of breakaway ANC officials and ministers dismayed by tribal splits in the ANC and the forced resignation, of course, of President Thabo Mbeki. The response of the ANC has been to consider bringing forward next year's general election to March. The leader of COPE is Mosiuoa Lekota. He was ANC Defence Minister for 9 years before resigning in September. Earlier, he had spent 14 years in prison for human rights reasons, including spells with Nelson Mandela on Robben Island. He joins me now from Johannesburg. Good morning. Good to have you with us.
Good morning, sir, and good morning to the listeners.
Thank you very much indeed. What were the main reasons, Mr. Lekota, would you say, for setting up the new party? Were they most of all, was it ideological, or disenchanted with the leadership of the ANC, or corruption in the ANC, or their treatment of Thabo Mbeki? What was the most driving reason for forming this new party?
Well, principally it was the issues of principles which had initially attracted us to the African National Congress. Such issues as problems of discipline, etc., are regular problems in an organization, but when the leadership of an organization appears to veer away and to ignore or trample underfoot principles on which the organization was predicated, then of course that is a very serious matter. And we have seen since the last conference, leaders of the African National Congress ignore and essentially abandon such principles as respect for the rule of law, such principles as both internal democracy in the organization as well as democracy in general. They have made pronouncements which suggest that they have very little respect for the principle of equality before the law. It was these kind of issues that tipped the scale.
And was the increase, which it seemed to be anyway, in the tribal element, in tribal rivalry, which you'd always eschewed under Nelson Mandela and Thabo Mbeki, this coming of Zulu tribalism, is that a dangerous symptom to a united South Africa?
Well, I must say that with regard to that matter, that there was no general, and there is still no general tribalism in the country. But it is significant that the present president of the ANC allowed people...
Jacob Zuma, yes.
Yes, indeed, allowed people to go around with T-shirts that patently were provoking tribalism, and they did that with his name emblazoned on these T-shirts, and refused to take firm action to discourage this kind of tendency. So it was not a general problem. It was a problem that arose in this way. One, by the way, which I raised with him to say that I thought that as a very senior leader of the ANC, he ought to attack head-on, because the constitution of the ANC specifically prohibits, in fact it enjoins all members of the ANC to fight against tribalism. But my efforts were to no avail, and this tendency just continued.
And you said of Mr. Zuma, you said, I know that you said you didn't want to go into personalities particularly, but you said, quote, I know he's absolutely not an appropriate person to be president of South Africa. How is he not appropriate?
Well, my own view is that anybody who is not prepared to tackle head on, first and foremost, the question such as this one I've raised of tribalism could not be appropriate to lead our nation. There are too many tribes in this country, and if a tendency like that was associated with a leader, such a leader could only lead us to a disaster. With regard to the elections that lie ahead, I am quite convinced that the majority of the people of our country, even if they don't pronounce now, when they go to the polls, I think that we will see that they will vote in keeping with the sentiments that we have expressed. If one also takes into account the strong and the deep roots of Christian teaching in this society, one will accept that when it comes to these issues of corruption and other things like that, our people will find it very difficult to support organizations in whose ranks there are patent elements of corrupt individuals.
And in fact, when did the corruption really start? I mean, did it start after Nelson Mandela left office, or after President Mbeki just recently left office? I mean, how long has it been going on, this corruption?
Well, in the first place, as a society, we inherited from the old apartheid regime incredible amounts of corruption. And what we ourselves set out to do was both to expose that corruption that was in society and to seek ways of stamping it out. The tragedy is that as we moved on, elements of corruption emerged even within the ranks of the organization and government. And some of the leaders and members of our organization themselves were caught up in the web of this corruption, and some of them have been before the courts and have been convicted of some of these corrupt activities. So it is difficult to say, well, in fact, it would be incorrect to say that corruption started when we came to government. Corruption was there long before we came. Under apartheid, many of our people had to pay bribes to get pass books, to get documentation that legitimized them to find jobs in some of the, especially in the urban centers, and so on and so on. In the Bantustans, there were also rife practices of corruption.
Have you had conversations with former President Mbeki about the new party? I think he's said, for instance, that he's not going to endorse the ANC in the next election, hasn't he?
Well, what he has said is that we did not consult him about what we wanted to do, and that the ANC leadership itself did not consult him with regard to how it would respond to what we were doing. And therefore, at the close of his letter, he then made an appeal to all of us and said he hoped that none of us would seek to use his name to improve our fortunes, including during the coming election campaign.
So that's clear at the moment. You don't think you can persuade him to change his mind and endorse your party?
As far as I'm concerned, and many of us would feel that it is better that we leave the matter that way. After all, we don't want anybody to say that we are acting on his behalf or acting on behalf of the other party or the other. So it is better that way. It's up to him to decide what he wants to do with regard to these matters.
And in terms of...
And by the way, that is a similar position that former President Nelson Mandela took, because he said that he had retired and he hoped that everybody, including the ANC, would recognize the fact that he's retired and therefore he would stay out of it.
And could you see after this next election the possibility of a government that is a coalition between your new party and the Democratic Alliance of Helen Zille?
It is very difficult at the present time to make any predictions because there are no patterns, set patterns that one can rely on. It's the very first time that this kind of atmosphere is allowed to thrive. Nevertheless, I must say that for us the issue is not one of color, it is one of principle. There are white South Africans who are genuinely committed to cooperation with black counterparts to build a common future. There are, on the other hand, and this is a hard reality, there are, on the other hand, also black fellow South Africans who are not committed to a similar principle, to a similar vision. So the challenge in our country is to find all the men and women who are committed to a common future, not just by way of preaching it, but by way of practice. And therefore, when it comes to this issue, I have made bold to say, I am not prepared to cooperate with a black African like myself who is not committed to a common future for the people of our country, black and white. But I will be ready to cooperate at the same time with a white South African as long as I'm absolutely satisfied that that white South African is totally committed to the common future of the people of our country, black and white.
So in conclusion, is there anything that the current leadership of the ANC, Mr. Zuma and the rest, is there anything they could do that would make you want to rejoin the ANC, or has it now gone too far and that's impossible?
Sir, there is only one thing that can unite us South Africans, those who are committed to a common future and who honestly and genuinely work for that on the basis of the constitution of our country. And for all people, black or white, some of us will be committed to that. Some will not be committed to it. And that will always be the dividing line. There is nothing else that can unite us that's more important than that principle.
So there's no likelihood of the new party going back to the ANC. The lines are drawn for the election battle to come.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lekota, for being with us today. We really appreciate it. This conversation has been terrific, and we look forward to doing it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It's a privilege.